Hello and welcome to another episode of Tapping into Abundant Success. Today I have an amazing guest with me. Her name is Nalasa Cutler, and she is joining me today for a little interview to see about the workings in her life and the inspiration she's going to share with you. So Nalasa, please do introduce yourselves. Tell us where you're from, what you're doing, what lights you up, all that magic that you create in the world. Let's have it. Let's hear all about it.
Oh, fantastic. I'm so happy to be here. So my name is Nalasa. My business is Ascension Aesthetics, and I really work with people to transform how they connect, interact, and live in their space. And so this is all the way from the energetics of how we feel grounded, supported by our environment, what different frequencies are possibly going on there, healing, solving, creating greater beauty in the world, as well as doing design, function, really working with the interrelationship between humans' idea of self as well as their physical extension of themselves that are supported by the world we live in, the rooms we function in, et cetera, et cetera.
I mean, that's like such a unique topic all on its own, right? Being able to get someone in their own space and help them actually connect with that space. There's not many people out there that do that kind of work. So I have to ask, what inspired you to dive into this field of energetic space work?
Great way to describe it. It's what lights me up, really. It's what I've had a long history between, I traveled a ton. I lived in 13 houses by the time I was 13, or moved 13 times. I've moved around the world so much, and that act of even creating spaces, traveling to different areas and realizing like what aspects of you change and what aspects of you change stay the same, depending on both location as well as the items you're bringing with us. So there's been like this really fine tinkering of just refinement and taking in new spaces and seeing how myself as well as others blossom when they're in spaces that feel soothing, open, fresh. There's all of these main characteristics of space that fall as well, that people are gravitated towards. Plus, there is people's unique expression, character, and really bringing that out in the spaces makes people shine more. I feel like there's a constant feedback loop between who we are and the spaces we surround ourselves with. And that can be environmental spaces, that can be people, that can be many different aspects of your environment. It's just been, it feels like I've had my business for about 4 years at this point, and it feels like it's always been kind of in the cards coming. My point to getting here has been very, very varied. I've done lots of different things. I've traveled lots of different places. I worked in a florist for a while. I had a restaurant in Ecuador for a while. And so I've had all of these different experiences traveling. And that's been a passion of mine. And so when I work with other people, it's like, what is your passion? What is it that lights you up? How is that alive in your space? And feeling that pulsation or that aliveness of yourself and the environment that you're inhabiting, that fire you're giving it.
Amazing. And then, so what was the moment in time when you decided that this was going to be your business? This is what you were going to do, and this is how it was going to play out?
It's so interesting because I think probably so many people listening to this can relate that like you have these ideas in your head of like, oh, like wouldn't it be great if this or if that, and then you eventually come to a point where you're like, why not? Like, why can't it be that? And I remember I was actually sitting I went through a recent breakup, and I was sitting on the floor chatting with this new person, and he was just like, why can't you just get paid for going into spaces and like doing this with people? And it was just kind of like the aha moment of like, yes, like why can't I? Like, why can't I do this? And yeah, and so that's kind of what started it. And I had been doing some aspects of this beforehand. I've always been drawn to interior design. I've been an artist. I paint, I draw. And I've always found that design, specifically in interiors, it often feels overly materialistic. It feels so like about this and that and about the colors or palette or all this stuff, and it misses, I think, what is really, really important, which is the person living there. How does it make them feel? How do they come alive in their spaces? It's not about having the perfect couch or having that fantastic wallpaper, but like, it's what lights you up about it. What is that relationship there with your home, with these elements that are often viewed as such a materialistic thing, as opposed to really bringing the aliveness, the life, the connection, or the interdependence, the interrelation, creativity part, and making that center stage.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know more like interior design work, when you think about that energetically, it's more about bringing in feng shui and making sure that things are in the right space, so you're not blocking the energetic flows and stuff like that. So what makes your work different to feng shui? Because I think lots of people are going to be very interested.
So I definitely incorporate aspects of feng shui in my work. I find that feng shui can often sometimes feel overly prescriptive. That people get caught up in like, oh, like this is my abundance corner, I need to have this and this and this there. And it almost comes out as being external still to you. It is so much about intentionality, and really, what are the stories you're making up about you in your head, and how does that then get acted out in your space? The work that I do as well, I also do dowsing. So that is looking at different energy fields, ley lines, systems where things may be disharmonious from a geopathic stress level, from clearing sometimes entities or things that are stuck in the fabric of the buildings that we inhabit. And so looking at like so many different layers I work with when I work with people. So it's like your emotional, mental body, as well as the earth thing, and really looking at that co-creative space between the two of you.
Absolutely. Okay, so that's like amazing, and it's so much more in depth, isn't it, than what you would think just based on the I'm going to clear your house space. There is so much more to it, which brings me to two questions. One question is, which I think you've already kind of answered, but I'd love to expand a little bit more on that. How does space clearing allow someone to tap into more abundant success? This is more, I think, specifically for those that do work from home as well. If you've got a home office, or if you do work in any way, shape, or form at home, how does that then impact?
So I'm going to answer something, it might come around to that, but what popped into my head for an analogy or thing is, I'll help people sell homes. So often your energy, I recently went and visited this person, and she's wanting to sell her home, but she hasn't actually moved out yet. The house isn't staged. Her energy isn't in line with the action or desire of doing this. And some of it is like physical things, but also it's the energy of her space is still feeling settled there, and it's her space. She's not like relinquishing it up to someone else. And thinking about, in like doing a dowsing or in doing a clearing, it's like getting her energy in alignment with what she's actually saying she wants, and releasing those patterns. It's working on the environment, rearranging and moving it, as well as there's also needs to be like her release of the property. And so they happen simultaneously. And so I don't think that exactly answers your question, but I wanted to give that analogy of how spaces and things and energetics are all really wrapped together in this beautiful little bundle.
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of a house sale, that makes perfect sense about what you do and how you do it, for the energetics of being able to let go of control, let go of any emotional attachment to the property, letting go of that baseline of, this has been a safety and stabilization, this has been a base camp, and being able to say, well, actually it's time for me to move on to new pastures. Doing the energetics of letting go is really, really great. So then, that's one aspect of the work you do. But someone who is saying, hey, come and clear out my house because like I'm feeling really claustrophobic, or I just can't seem to maneuver, I haven't quite made this my home yet, what would you say to that person then about, well, let's do this and then you can have more of that?
Yeah. So, in working with people's space and home and setting up their office and doing that, I think a lot of times people, it's so individual to the person and where they're at. And so when I do a session with you, I really come at like, what is your story? What is the story you're telling about your space? What is hindering? What's not? Is there a space for you to think? Is there a space that makes you come alive? I mean, often people's desks are very cluttered. There's all of this stuff that makes it so they can't necessarily focus. And sometimes they just don't have the systems, which is why I dabble in decluttering, all of that. But it all comes from energy first design. It's like, you don't just go to start decluttering. It's like, well, what is your why? What are you wanting to bring into the space? How are you wanting to feel there? So there's a lot of intentionality of creating the space that functions for where you're saying you want to be. And in one of my premises is like, you can do design work from the inside out or the outside in. So you can, do different belief systems, restructure it, or you can literally like change your space, instill these different key parts around your environment, and that will also slowly start to reinforce and change behavior inside of you, change the way you think, change the way you function.
Brilliant. So if someone listening in here at the moment was saying, okay, I want to tap into more abundant success, what best way would Nalasa help me with that? So what you're saying is you would do it as a whole person and their environment, rather than just the person themselves with their beliefs and their energetics. And
yeah, so one thing that I often find in working with spaces is that people feel in conflict with their environment. They are kind of struggling with it, and often they struggle with themselves as well. I take people on what I call an AVM, or an activation visualization meditation, that I've come up with, and I think the biggest thing with success is to stop fighting where you're at and realize what abundance is already there, what support systems you already have, feeling that ease, that relaxation, that support from whether it's your home system where you're at, to just even feeling the support that you have in your cells, in your body, in the space that you are. And my AVM, I feel like, is a really beautiful experience of really calling in those energies, those life experiences that you've had throughout the world, bringing them into this present moment, to where you are right now, whether you're in your home, in your space for another month, or whether it's going to be your forever home, and what is the next step that you take to do that. So I often start with seeing who you are, what is the relationship, where is the dilemma or area that you're wanting to working on, taking people on this journey, and that really just instills the vibrancy and kind of just hones in and aligns all the different energies to be able to understand what is the next step, what is my motivation, how do you fall into the right alignment, that the action then just happens naturally or effortlessly, or
amazing.
you're just in flow.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. So just out of curiosity then, is the activation meditation available on your website, or is that something you do with them in person to get the answers?
I do. So far, I've thought about, I've done some group-led ones. I'm actually thinking about doing a group-led one in Dark Matters, if anyone's part of it. It's part of a online thing that we're both part of. I usually do it personal to the person in my session. It's usually very individual to them. I can do more general ones. It doesn't have quite the same, different potencies. It's lovely to tailor things to people for this thing. Have it on my agenda to start recording some to offer in different ways, but I think it's a very I find it a very beautiful experience. People usually gain a lot of clarity, calmness, et cetera, from it. Yeah.
Amazing. Amazing. And I love that you are utilizing your spiritual gifts in the way that's unique to you, because this is one of the messages that I love to share. You have those gifts, and when you actually allow yourself to utilize them, to share them, and to flow with the heart-centered vibe of them, that's when a lot of things begin to change, right? When was it that you found in yourself that you had these spiritual gifts and you just decided to really fully own them, like really own them? When was
To be totally honest, I think I'm still owning them. Like, I think they're still like settling, like the potency of what I'm doing and how it's going to show up to the world, I think is still in process right as we speak in this call. In the future, I think, I mean, I suppose that goes for lack of growth and expansion, and how, when are you ever not embodying more learning, etc. As far as knowing these spiritual gifts, like, it's interesting in recognizing just the knack that I have for spaces. Like, I've been interested in floor plans and design and all of that stuff since I was a teenager. I was one of those kids. I was like 6 years old, and or 8 years old, and I'd be the kid that was like at the sacred geometry slideshow. And so I've had lots and lots of experiences of manifestation, of just creating both spaces and working with the universe in all of these different ways, and having flow and synchronicities and just all of these basic things, I feel like have always been part of my consciousness. I don't feel like I was really ever in a state where I was like asleep, oblivious to all of it, and then I woke up. I know a lot of people have that story, and I feel like I've really had this slow integrative life of experiences that have just allowed to blossom and strengthen, versus like a moment.
Amazing. Amazing. So to sum it up in a nutshell, if you are working from home, or you have an office, or you are just looking to get a bit more settled in yourself, Nalasa's the lady to go for to clear your energetic field and the space within your home, as well as work with you. And so I do very similar work, but I don't work with space. I work with businesses. So if you could give us one tip today for abundant success in the topic of your expertise, which is home clearing and the ley lines and all of that kind of magical stuff that you do, what tip would you give to someone who's looking for abundant success in their lives and feeling like it's a little bit out of reach? But if there was one tip you could give them around their home or within your area, something that you work with, what would you give them? What would you say to them? What would be the magical gift that you could give them today?
So recently I've come up with the phrase of like really befriending your space. I feel like often, just like asking your home to like, just like thanking your home, feeling grateful, feeling that connection of co-creation with that space. Even just like entering and being like, thank you. And there's this beautiful thing of just even creating a circle around you and whatever you want to do. So before you even work down, or as you sit at your desk, drawing a circle and just saying like abundant flow work today, or like, and creating that container that defines space of where you're creating, what that intention is, and just like throwing a circle, throwing that intention into it, and just seeing what magic happens from that container for the day, for the hour. And you can set a certain time limit if you want. It can be permanent, but you can try it out being like, all right, for the next hour, this circle is this, or even 10 minutes if you feel like that might be too much, or you want to see like the exchange or the difference in energy or flow or consciousness.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
That's an amazing tip as well, because often we forget to set the intentions about what we want. So that's a brilliant, another reminder that's coming in for being more intentional with what you want and actually projecting it into your existing reality. So thank you very much, Nalasa.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure to have you here today.
And really just creating the container for that. So like creating a circle, putting it to the room, but creating the peripheral structure that allows for that space to hold that is, yeah.
Brilliant.
Also key.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So if someone is looking to dive into your space work, where would they find you?
You can go to my website. It is www.nalasa.design or environmentalsouldesign.com. Either one will take you to the same link. And I'm also on Facebook. I'm on all the normal things. Instagram is environmental/soul/design. And yeah, those are the main options for getting in touch with me.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. We will pop the links in the show notes as well. So do go and check those out. And for those of you that are listening in and still wanting to get involved with the free psychic business readings for spiritual entrepreneurs, come and join the free group, the Spiritual Entrepreneur Business Growth Group on Facebook. That is where we are hanging out currently. So on that note, it's over and out from myself, Vicky Chisholm, psychic transformation coach, and Nalasa Cutler. I can't wait to the next episode. Bye-bye, and thank you, Nalasa, for joining us.
Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure. Take care.